Om Sadashivasamarambham Shankaracharya-madhyamam Asmadacharya-paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Om Sahanavatu Sahananaktu Sahaviryam Karvavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Okay, so we are on chapter 3 of Mandukya Upanishad, Advaita Prakaranam, verse number 27. So please unmute yourself, we will chant. Sato hi mayaya janma
Sato hi
Maya Janma
yujyate natu tatvatah
Yujyate Tattvataha
vato jayate yasya
Tattvato Jayate Yasya
jatam tasya hi jayate.
Jatam
Jatam Tasya Hi Jayate.
So sataha, for the sat vastu, for the one who is always existent, janma yujyate hi mayaya. Only apparent birth is possible because the word maya is being used. So only a mithya birth is possible. So the one who is really existent, only a mithya birth is possible, which means for Satyam, no birth is possible. If at all Satyam we say is born again, that birth is only mithya, and therefore na tattvataha tu. A real birth is never possible. Then jatam hi jayate. If a person thinks that whatever is born will be born again, tasya yasya tattvata jayate. For that person who thinks that what is born will be born again, then he is really born. Okay, so a little bit confusing, like all these karikas. So let's look at the first line first, with this, which is saying that Sato hi maya janma yujyate na tu tattvataha. So there is an interpretation. There are two interpretations actually. The first interpretation is Sataha. From that existing karanam alone, something can be born. Therefore, nothing can be born from a non-existent karanam. Okay, so here remember, Sataha is being presented, Brahman is being presented as the Nimitta Karanam. We can also look at Brahman as, or Ishvara as Upadana Karanam. So that is the second explanation. If Sataha is taken as Upadana Karanam, then because of what was said earlier, Satohi Maya Janma. For that Sat Vastu, there is no real creation possible. So if you take Sat as Upadana Karanam, then a Mithya creation only is possible. A real creation is never possible. So there could be an objection. And what is that? This is an objection presented by Shankara. So he says, this person who is the Purva Pakshi, he says that you say that Atma can never be known. So Sarva Pramana Agochara. And if something is not known at all, then this Purva Pakshi's view is that it must be definitely non-existent. Okay. What is the answer we can give for this? So Shankara says, the subject, are always apramayam. You are never known. The subject can be never known, but even though you, the subject, are never known, the subject, can you say, is not existing? No, the subject is existent. So even though the pramata is always apramayam, the subject can never be the object of a pramanam, even then you cannot say that the pramata does not exist. And therefore that generalization is wrong. That because Brahman cannot be known, Brahman, there can be a doubt that does Brahman exist at all. So that statement is wrong, because since you yourself are not known but you exist, that generalization is not correct. So Brahman, even though Brahman cannot be known, Brahman very much exists. Okay. What is the proof? Because the product, when it is experienced, we say that the cause exists. What is the product here? Jagat, the universe. Does the universe exist? Yes, because it is perceived by all. And therefore, what is the inference? Because the karyam, the universe exists, the karanam for the universe, Atma, must also exist. Right? And he gives an example. Shankara gives an example in his Bhashyam. He says that just as from a magician, now this is Mayavi, the magician, not Ishvara. So what does the magician do? He stands on stage and he produces various things like magical rings and magical necklaces. They come from thin air apparently. So he says just as the rings and the necklace and all which exist, they apparently appear from nowhere. Similarly, he says, from that greatest magician of all, Ishvara, the entire universe is born. So this is the example that Shankara gives. And he says, from the fact that the universe can be perceived and the universe is a product, we can infer the presence of the Paramatma, Brahman, right? Because only from an existing Karanam can existing products arise, right? Now, so he says, Natu Tatvata Evaha. This Jagat is Mithya. It is not Satyam. Why is that so? Atmanaha Janma Yujyate. It is born from that Atma. But that Atma is Satyam. And the Satyam cannot be born. And therefore, if you say that Jagat is born from Atma, you have to say that the Jagat is being born from Satyam, which is a contradiction in terms. Satyam is already existing. How can it be born? And therefore, you have to take it as seemingly born. The Jagat is Mithya only. So remember that this is you are interpreting as Nimitta Karana. Now, look at the second line. Tatvato jayate yasya jatam tasya hi jayate. So here Shankara says take Sataha as existing Upadana Karana, right? Now, Upadana Karanam can be two types. What are they?
Vivarta and Parinami.
Vivarta and Parinami. What is the difference?
Parinami is where there is a actual change and it cannot go back to the original. Vivarta is where there is a seeming change or a change that we pursue.
Right. So if you take, for example, the clay turning into pot, so we can present it in one way. We can say pot is born out of clay. That is one way which we present. Or another way which Shankaracharya very extensively uses in his Bhashyam, he says that clay is being born in the form of a pot. What is the first? Pot is born out of that Upadana Karanam, out of that material which we call clay. That is one way of presentation. But Shankara uses another way. He says, it is indeed not the pot being born. It is the clay which is born, but it is being born in the form of a pot. Why does he say this? Why does he use this expression? Because clay changes form. Through some external action, external karma of the potter, the clay changes form and becomes a pot. And therefore, you have to reword your whole thinking. we no longer say the pot is born. We no longer say the pot is a product which is born. We say it is actually the upadana karanam, the material cause, which is born in the form of a product. And when you say this, what happens? Atma is born in the form of Jagat. When you say Atma or Brahman is being born in the form of Jagat, remember, this is the presentation of Atma being the Parinami Upadana Karan. Why? Because Atma is changing into Jagat. Okay. What about Vivarta Upadana Karanam? It is a rope snake example. So we can again present in two ways. We can say snake has been born out of the rope, or we can say rope is being born in the form of a snake. Both the cases, is it Parinami or Vivarta?
Vivarta.
Because
There is no actual change. The rope doesn't actually become the snake.
exactly, there
It
is no
is true.
actual change, and therefore, whether you say snake is born out of the rope, or whether you say rope is being born in the form of a snake, both are Vivarta Karanam alone. And that is why when in this Karika, Gaudapada is saying Atma is born in the form of the universe or the Jagat, remember it is Atma is Upadana Karanam, but Atma is purely Vivarta Upadana Karanam. We can never say that Atma will be Parinami Upadana Karanam because Atma is Nirvikara, not subject to change. Therefore, Atma can be seemingly born in the form of the universe. This is what is said here. So he says in his commentary, he says, just as for the rope can be born as the snake, but natu tatvataha. It is figuratively born. Mayaya. Janma yujyate mayaya. That rope is only figuratively born as the snake. Natu tatvataha. It can never really be born. In the same manner, the Atma, even though you cannot know the Atma, perceive the Atma, it is like the rope snake. It is figuratively born as the universe. It is the Upadana Karanam, Vivarta Upadana Karanam, never the Parinami Upadana Karanam. And there's an example given here. It is what we call suppositional argument, Abhyupetya Vadaha. Supposing the Atma is not taken as Vivarta Upadana Karanam, but is taken as Parinami Upadana Karanam. Remember that Vishishta Advaitam, it talks about the actual conversion of Atma into the world. So here again I will repeat that among all the darshanas, the Mithya concept is available only in Advaitam. Therefore, whenever you talk Advaitam, you can say Atma is seemingly born as the world. But when you talk any other darshana, when they say Atma produces the world or is born as the world, it means Atma is undergoing a parinama, actual change. Therefore, here it is a suppositional argument. Supposing you are saying that Atma is parinami upadana karanam, and therefore Atma is really born as the world, as the universe. Now, Shankara says, you take that sentence, Atma is really born as Jagat. And in his argument, he says, Veda describes Atma as Ajaha. Ajaha means what?
Unborn.
Unborn.
Never born.
That which is never born. So he says, Shankara says, in the statement, Atma is born as the universe, you simply replace the word Atma with the meaning. ajaha. So you are saying that that which is not born, ajaha, is now being born as the universe. So that is a clear contradiction. How can the unborn, how can the one which has never been born be born? And therefore he says you have to say, whenever you say that unborn Atma is born in the form of the universe, you are saying it is seemingly born. There is no way of saying that Atma is really born. Hence, you can never say Atma is Parinami Upadana Karanam. You have to say that Atma is Vivarta Upadana Karanam only. There is no other way. Okay. So, this Karika basically is being used to establish that Atma is Vivarta Karanam alone. Thereby, it negates the views of any other darshana which says that Atma is really born or really transforms into the universe. Now we look at Karika number 28. We will chant. Please unmute yourself. Asato Maya Janma
Asato Maya Janma
Vato Naiva Yujyate
Tattvato Naiva Yujyate
Vandhya Putrona Tatvena
Vandhya Putrona Tattvena
Ayaya Vapi Jayate.
Mayaya Vapi Jayate.
So, Asataha Janma Na Eva Yujyate Maya Tatvataha. What did we say in the last one? Sataha. That which is existing, if you say it is born, you have to say it is seemingly born only. So, Sataha, Brahman, Atma. If at all you take it as the Karanam of the universe, you have to take it as Vivarta Upadana Karanam or Nimitta Karanam. Okay. So, what about here? Asataha, that which does not exist. What happens to it? Janmana Ujjate is never born. Mayaya eva tatvataha. You can understand? The non-existing entity is never born, either really or apparently. Right? So that's the sentence. Last one we said, when you take Sataha as the Karanam, then you have to say that the Karyam is apparently born. But if you take Asataha as the Karanam, then you have to say that nothing is ever born at all because nothing can be born from nothing. That's what he says. Asataha janma na yujjate. The non-existent can never be born. Tatvataha ya mayaya. Either in reality or apparently. And he gives an example. Vandhya putraha na jayate mayaya va api tatvataha. Now, Vandhya is a lady who cannot have a child. It could be of variety of reasons, absence of womb, sterilization, so many reasons are there, absence of some natural defect, all these things are there. So when there is a lady who cannot have a child, and therefore he compares that universe which is being said to be born from a non-existent entity, he says it is like the son of a woman who has no children, who can have no children. So son of a lady who is physically incapable of bearing a child, that child cannot be born mayaya ya tatvataha, either in reality or seemingly also. What is Gaudapada saying? Whether the karyam is satyam or mithya, right? It doesn't matter whether the karyam, the product, is satyam or mithya. If at all that karyam is born, then remember the karanam must be existing. The karanam must be satyam. From a non-existing karanam, neither a satyam product can be born, nor a mithya product can be born. It's a very important karika. So whether jagat is satyam or mithya, it doesn't matter. What is the conclusion? The karanam Ishvara, Atma, Brahman, It must be Satyam only. Right. So if you take the earlier arguments, if Karanam is taken as Nimitta Karanam, efficient cause, then Karyam is not possible. Why?
Brahman is a karta.
No. If Karanam is Nimitta Karanam, then there is no possibility of it changing. And therefore,
Yes.
there is no Karyam at all possible. Therefore, if Karanam is Nimitta Karanam, Karyam is not possible simply because Karanam is absent. If Karanam is Upadana Karanam, then also Karyam is not possible because Karanam is absent. So Gaudapada says, whichever way you look at it, you say Brahman is Nimitta Karanam, Jagat is not possible to be born. You say Brahman is Upadana Karanam, Jagat is not, a real Jagat is not possible to be born. Therefore, whether there is a non-existent Karanam, non-existent Karyam, or existent Karyam, the Karanam basically is not changing at all. In the absence of a Karyam, what happens? There is no Karanam. And since, as we said, whether Brahman is Nimitta Karanam or Upadana Karanam, the Jagat cannot really be born at all. Therefore, he says, birth of the universe is not possible in any manner whatsoever. Just like the child of a childless woman cannot be born in any manner whatsoever. And therefore, he says, this is different. What I am saying is different from Satkaryavada, different from Asatkaryavada. What am I saying? I am saying there is no creation at all. But no real creation has come, no Mithya creation has come. What is there is only Brahman. So the world is never born at all. And this is what we call Ajati Vadaha, the theory that the world is never born,
So,
either in reality or in Mithya.
Acharya.
Yes.
So we have negated the word, but the experience of the word is still there now.
We'll come to all that. Experience, transactability, utility, yes. All that will come to.
So how do
Okay.
we say that there is no mithya word? There's got to be mithya word, then only we can have the experience.
All right. So we are coming to that only. Let us look at Karika number 29.
Om
Now,
Acharya ji,
yeah,
if I may, between this verse 27 and 28,
yeah,
so you said that what I understood is that from 27th we are saying because Brahman is the
Satyam.
Vivart Upadan Karanam, so therefore there is no change over there. So
Correct. So there is no
Brahman
product
is,
at all.
yes. And here it is said that from Asat or from non-existent, I mean,
Yes.
so is this talking about Parinami Upadan Karanam?
No, there
That
is non-existent thing is a completely different set. Okay, Satkaryavada is Sankhya philosophy. Asatkaryavada is Nyaya philosophy. Asatkaryavada says from the non-existing cause a product is born. That is to say that the pot which is born is not present in the clay. That kind of a theory. So that's what he's saying. If the cause is not existent, you cannot have a product at all.
okay.
Two different theories. One is Satkaryavada, one is Asatkaryavada.
Okay,
Both
so
are being negated.
okay, okay, fine. Thank you.
Okay, let us look at verse number 29. Yatha swapne dvayabhasam
यथा स्वप्ने द्वयाभासम्
andate mayaya manaha
स्पन्दते मायया मनः
तथा जागृद्वयाभासम
तथा जागृद्वयाभासम्
andate mayaya manaha.
स्पन्दते मायया मनः.
Okay. So yatha swapne, during the dream, just as the mind projects abhasam, the mind projects abhasam. Dvaya abhasam means projects duality. Yatha swapne manah va dvayabhasam, just as the mind projects duality during a dream. How does it do? Maya. So here Maya is your Nidra Shakti, right? So just as the Nidra Shakti is used by the mind to project the dream world in the dream, tatha, in the same manner, Jagrat Mayaya Manaha Dvayabhasam Spadnate. In the same manner, the mind projects a duality in the waking state. Here Maya means Maya Shakti. Okay, you have to be careful about this. In one case, in your dream state, it is the dream power of the individual mind which is being talked about, which projects. But in the waking state, it is the universal mind, Ishvara's mind, which is being projected. Okay, which is being talked about. So the individual mind uses Nidra Shakti, Ishvara's mind. When it uses the same Shakti, it is called Maya Shakti. Right? Then how Katham Punaha, how is this Atma born in the form of the Mithya Jagat? So just just as the dream world is projected falsely during a dream state, the waking world is projected falsely during your waking state. So when you say this, you have to be careful because uh, Yogachara Buddhism, which we call Shunyavada also, they also say that the universe is a mental projection. But the difference is that when they talk about the universe being a mental projection in the waking state, in Jagrata Avastha, Shunyavada is referring to an individual mind. So Shunyavada holds that the individual mind projects the universe, whereas we, Vedantins, we accept the universe as a projection. But in the Jagrata Avastha, we say it is the Ishvara's mind which projects. It is universal mind which projects. And therefore that noting Shankara makes in his Bhashya, he says you have to write Atma, where the Manaha is mentioned for the Jagrata Avastha, you have to say Atma because it is the universal mind. It is Samashti mind. Okay. The question is, how can you say mind is Atma? What is the answer to that? Supposing I say, how can you say that mind is Atma? No? What is mind?
Because mind is consciousness reveals through mind only. So you can say mind is Atma. The first reflection of OC is there only.
Okay, but remember that we are now at a stage when we are saying Sarvam Brahman.
Yes, so
You
everything is
cannot
Brahman
say
in that
anything is
case.
not Atma.
So everything is Brahman in that case.
Everything is Brahman only. And therefore you can very easily say that mind is Atma. Only thing, it is Samashti mind. Hiranyagarbha's mind over here. Okay. So when the mind is understood as Atma, then you know that what I am seeing is the seeming duality which I am seeing. It is a projection of Ishvara's mind only. Therefore, Jagrat, he says, in the waking state also, Manaspandate Mayaya, the cosmic mind, Ishvara's mind, projects the universe, Jagrat Prapancha, using Maya. The word Eva, Shankara adds, you should write Eva, as if. Because when you say mind is Atma, if you are saying mind is Atma and mind is projecting universe, what happens when you replace the word mind by Atma? You say Atma is projecting universe. but Atma is akarta. And therefore, to what you call, to make sure, just give me a second, please. Sharad, I'm in the middle of a class. Can I call you back? Yeah. Okay. So when I say that Atma is projecting the universe, then that means that I am saying Atma is Karta. And to avoid that, I have to say Atma is seemingly projecting the universe, which brings us back to the argument we used earlier. Atma is Vivarta Upadana Karan. Okay. All right. Now we come to Rashmiji's question. It's all very nice to hear that, Shruti says this world is not there. Ajati Vadaha. Logically also we say that, okay, fine, it is Vivarta Upadana Karanam. So world is really not there at all because there is only Brahman. But I can experience the world. I can transact in the world. And the world has utility for me. So how can this perceivable, visibly tangible, visibly useful world, which gives me dukkham and sukham, how can it said to be mithya? How can you say it is not there at all? Right? And it is a very real question because not just ordinary people, even great philosophers have not been able to accept. What does Gaudapada give as an answer? Gaudapada says, yes, I agree that world is tangible. I agree that world is experienceable. I agree that world is useful. I'm agreeing to all these things. But you should not equate experienceability, transactability, utility, tangibility, all these things are not the same as Satyatvam. You cannot say something because you can experience, because you can transact, because it is useful. You cannot say that it establishes Satya. What is the logic? He says that even in the dream, the world, in the dream for the dreamer, the world has all these, features. It can be experienced, you can transact, and it's useful. So therefore, just because the world is useful, just because you can transact, you won't say the dream world is Satyam. How then can you say that using those qualifications, those adjectives, how can you say that the Jagrada Avastha is Satyam? Right? So just because something causes you a problem, it does not become Satyam. It can be experienced. All experiences are in the realm of Dvaitam only. They are subject to arrival and departure. Advaitam cannot be a matter of arrival and departure. Right? And therefore, you cannot say that the world is, Jagrada Avastha is Satyam, is Mithya, just because it is, there is experienceability, there is transactability. You cannot say that this Jagrada Avastha exists or the world exists, you cannot say at all. The world doesn't really exist at all. All your Dvaita experiences are in the realm of Mithya. So here a very nice, line is being drawn. So far we have been saying that there are two levels of reality, Satyam and Mithya. And here Gaudapada says, what are you talking about Mithya? There is no such thing at all. Rashmiji?
Acharya, very difficult to digest. Simply very, I don't know.
You have to keep on chewing it. Something is difficult to digest.
But something which you are interacting every day to day life, then how do you say, I'm seeing you, you're talking to me? How do I say you are not there?
Because from the Paramarthika point of view,
Nothing is
all you
there.
are saying is Brahman. All transactions are Brahman.
But then that is mithya appearance of Brahman. No? तो ये
Mithya,
देर
that one
सिर्फ
is Mithya
सत्य
appearance
मिथ्या
is-
समझना बहुत आसान है, पर ये नहीं है कुछ भी, ये समझना तो बहुत मुश्किल है.
That is because you have now come to the standard. You have two standpoints. Standing in Vyavaharika, for you, Dvaitam is there. You can appreciate that Dvaitam is Mithya standing in a Vyavaharika. Standing in Paramarthika, you cannot say that there is Dvaitam at all. Mithya word is the biggest Mithya. There is nothing at all excepting Brahman.
Yeah, it is mithya.
Okay, so it's very difficult to understand, but yes. Anyway, let us go on to the 30th Karika. Similar flow. Advayam cha dvayabhasam
अद्वयं च द्वयाभासम्
na swapnena samshayah.
न स्वप्ने न
मनस्वप्नेन
संशयः.
संशयः
Advayam cha dvayabhasam
अद्वयं च
अद्वयं च
द्वयाभासं
द्वयाभासम्
तथा जागरन्न samshayah.
तथा
तथा
जाग्रन्न
जागरण
संशयः.
संशयः.
So this is the corollary of the previous Karika. Advayam manaha dvayabhasam swapne na samshayah. Just as there is no doubt that the mind itself is the seeming duality in your dream. The mind itself, he doesn't say is causing the duality. The mind itself is the duality. Tatha, in the same manner, nisamshayaha jagarata, there is no doubt that the mind itself is the seeming duality in the Jagrat Avastha. What does it mean when you say mind itself is seeming duality? When the mind projects the dream universe, it projects you, the dreamer, it projects the dream universe, it projects all the objects in the dream universe. And therefore, he is saying that there is no dream universe which is separate from the mind. The mind itself has become all these things. And therefore, he says mind is the seeming duality. And similarly, just as in the dream universe, the mind itself is the seeming duality. In the waking universe, the mind itself is the seeming duality. And Shankara says, just as in reality, the snake is in the form of the rope alone. Similarly, the mind, though really non-dual, appears as the dualistic dream in the dream avastha, and the cosmic mind, again really non-dual, appears as the dualistic universe in Jagrata Avastha. And he gives an example. Shankara says, just as in the dream, objects like elephant, as well as the eyes which perceive that elephant, both are basically what? Your mind only. Therefore, dvayam, the subject-object duality is not different from the mind. Similarly, they are not different from the Atma. Right? And Shankara, I will say again, Shankara replaces the word manaha with Atma here, which is negation of Shunyavada Buddhism. Right? This is what he's saying here. And therefore, we go on to the second line now. So he says, in the waking state, the duality of the waking state does not exist separately from Brahman. What is that Brahman? Sat and Chit. That Ishvara's mind is nothing but Brahman alone, Atma alone, which is nothing but Sat and Chit. And that being so, since the mind is one, like in your dream, the mind is one. It is both the cause of the dream as well as the product of the dream. So mind itself is the karyam and the karanam. Similarly, he says, You can say, because it is Brahman alone which exists as the world, Brahman alone which exists as Atma, this Brahman is Karya Karana Vilakshanam. It is neither the product nor is it the cause. This Karika is explaining what we saw in the long ago in the seventh mantra of the Upanishad itself, which said Chaturtham Manyanti Advaita. The word Advaitam means Karya Karana Vilakshanam. That Brahman which is different from the universe, which is different from the product as well as the creator. Yeah. But Advaitam has to be understood as neither the cause nor the. Okay. Any questions?
So,
Central teaching is more or less over here. I know it's difficult, but we have lots to go.
so Om Acharya ji, in this verse number 30, when he's saying non-dual mind,
Yeah.
Advayam, in the dream, so essentially he's saying the mind of the waker. That is the mind of the waker, which itself appears as the dreamer, the dreamer's mind, and the jagat of the
Yes.
dream world.
Yes.
And
The entire
therefore,
dream world is contained in the waker's mind.
right. But the waker's mind is not the waker.
Waker's
The
mind.
waker
No, don't
is
get confused. We are talking about
the
the
second
mind.
part.
What do you mean by waker over here? Waker is
The
one who
waker
is
is
not in the
the
dream.
Karya Karan Vilakshanam. Will that be taken as that or the witness?
Vilakshanam,
It's
Karika,
not saying the
neither the
word is not.
product nor the cause. You have to understand why. You are not to say that the mind is different from the dream world or the dreamer. The mind is the same as the dream world or the dreamer. That is why there is non-duality. If you say mind is projecting the dream world, you are giving duality. You
Yes.
are at a different level over here.
So no, I'm trying to replicate it at the Paramarthic level. So similarly, in the Jagrat Avastha, there is a mind, there is a waker, there is a waker's mind.
Oh, don't go into Baker's mind and non-Jagrata Avastha. When you're talking about Jagrata Avastha, you're talking about Ishvara's mind. Your individual mind cannot project a world.
Yes, but as a
That is,
waker, I'm supposed to be Ishvara if I'm seeing the Jagat.
no, you are not. Be very clear about that. Ishvara is capable of creating the Jagat. Are you? So whenever you talk about the world is being created or projected, it is the cosmic mind. It is Samashti Manaha, not Vyashti Mana. It is Hiranyagarbha's mind, not Jiva's mind. So this, distinction, your mind has to, your intellect has to jump from idea to idea as the words change. When you're talking about individual thing, it's one thing. When you're talking about Samashti, it's another thing altogether. Ultimately, both are the same, yes. But
Yes,
for
that's
understanding
so.
purposes, you have to keep the difference in mind. Otherwise, you'll get confused.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we'll try to do one more verse. Karika number 31. Maybe chant. Manodrishyamidam dvaitam
मनोदृश्यमिदं द्वैतम्
yatkinchitat sacharacharam
यत्किञ्चित् सचराचरम्
manaso yamani bhave
मनसो
Manaso
ह्यामि
Yamani
भावे
Bhave
dvaitam naivopalabhyate.
द्वैतं नैकोपलभ्यते
Dvaitam Nivo Phalabhyate.
Idam dvaitam, this dvaitam, yat kinchit sacharacharam. Chara acharam. This dvaitam which consists of all chara and acharam, all moving and non-moving beings, manaha drishyam is a projection of the mind. That is the statement. Why is it so? The rest of it is the reason. Manasaha amani bhavaha Amani means when the functions of the mind have ceased. So manasaha amani bhavaha, when the mind ceases to function, dvaitam na eva upalabhyate. Dvaitam cannot be seen at all. So manasi amani bhavaha means literally means when the mind has become the non-mind, which means it has stopped functioning as the mind. So you can take it as has merged into Karana Shariram, Sushupti Avastha, right? So there are actually two conditions under which mind stops functioning. One is Sushupti Avastha, one is Nirvikalpa Samadhi. Of course, you can say other things, artificially produced, like if you're under anesthesia and stuff like that, right? So under these cases, the mind is said to be Amani Bhava. Its functions as a mind are not there. Then there is a third Vedantic one, which we call Pravilapanam. We have used this word in the past in Gita. Pravilapanam is the intellectual dissolution of the mind. How do you intellectually dissolve the mind?
Into Brahmakar with Vritti.
Better answer? How does the
Sarvam Brahma.
mind remain functional but gets dismissed?
By knowing it to be mithya.
By knowing it to be mithya. As simple as that. Pravilapanam means you have accepted that the mind is functional, you accepted that you have a mind, but you know that it is mithya only. Why is it mithya? Because there are three koshas which are being blessed by the consciousness principle, right? So, Manomaya kosha, Vijnanamaya kosha, all those things are there. They are all mithya only because there is a reflecting medium. Whatever has a reflecting medium and is reflecting is mithya, right? How do you make this mind amani bhavaha? So Shankara says in his commentary, you use abhyasa and vairagyam, and then ensure that using abhyasa and vairagyam, you use viveka also. So the words are all belonging to Yoga Sutras. Nirodhaha, vairagyaha, abhyasaha. But the message is Vedantic. Your mind has to be dismissed. It has to be dissolved into Brahman, like the snake dissolves into the rope. So there is no Dvaitam when the mind is absent. That is called Pravilapanam. In short, Amani Bhava, the moment you say, you can say the Pramata, the knower, loses his knowing status, and therefore the mind becomes non-functional. So you have seen other words in Yoga Sutras, for example, Unmani Avastha, right? Manonashaha. These are all different words carrying the same meaning. What Gaudapada is saying here that all problems arise only because of perception of Dvaita, and perception of Dvaita arises because you have not understood that Advaitam is the ultimate reality. Right? The dream perception of duality causes problems because the problems are there. You forget about Advaitam, and therefore you should not forget that wherever Dvaitam is predominant, there will be samsara. Wherever Advaitam is predominant, there will be moksha. And this is clearly proved in your experience also. In Jagrat, the mind is active. In Swapna, part of the mind is active. In both these avasthas, there is Dvaita Darshanam. In both these avasthas, you have problems. In Sushupti, the mind is resolved. Therefore, you have no problems at all. So, wherever there is a mind, there is a problem. Wherever the mind has been dismissed as mithya, has been resolved, there is no problem. Right? So this is the topic which is being now discussed. When you want to master the world, The only thing you require to master is your mind. All these topics are being dealt with in the next 8 or 9 karikas, which we will take up in the next class. Any questions, please? Manonasha has happened. Looks like Manonasha.
Manunasha, yes, total Manunasha.
Okay, fine. Om Purnadam Purnamadam Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam Eva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Tat
Om
Sat.
Tat
Om Namah
Sat.
Shivaya.
Om
Thank you
Namah
for your
Shivaya.
patience. Om Om.
Thank you, Acharya ji. Thank you.